So let's get into it, shall we? Today we're going to be using the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation. So there's many ways that you can figure out your calories. This is one that I like. It does require a little bit of maths. So if you're a bodybuilder or a power lifter, I know that can be hard, but just bear with me. I'll do all the working out for you, yeah? The first thing we're going to have to try and do is figure out what your BMR is, right? So BMR. Your BMR is your basal metabolic rate. So this is the amount of calories you burn if you sat in bed and did absolutely nothing all day. So this is the bare minimum, no matter what you're doing, no matter what activity you do during the day. So how we figured that out is we're going to go for 10 times your body weight in kilograms. So we are using the metric system because we know how to count properly. Once you've figured out 10 times your body weight, you're then going to add on 6.25 times your height. And again, we're using metric, so we're going to go in centimeters. None of that feet and inches or hands or whatever it is you're measuring. Last thing we're going to do is subtract 5 times your age, right? 5 times your age in years, not months and that kind of stuff. So you're not 27 and 6 months, you're 27, okay? And then if you are a male, you are then going to add 5 on the end. If you are female, you're then going to subtract 161. So this is what it will look like, right? 10 times my body weight, so 89 is 890 kilos, yeah? And then we're going to add on 6.25 times 183, which is my height, so 1,143.75 minus 5 times 29, so 145. And then we add on the 5 because I'm a male. If you're a female, you'd subtract 161 here. Yeah? The total that we get is 1,893.75. So if I did absolutely nothing, if I don't work out, I just lay in bed, that is how much I need to eat to maintain my body weight. Next thing we're going to do is try and figure out how much you need to add on based on your activity level. So for your activity level, there's 5 options that you have. So just choose which one I guess best suits you. It doesn't have to be exact, but the more accurate you can be, the better. First one we're going to look at is if you do little to no exercise, right? So if you just go to work, come home, you don't go for walks, you don't do anything. If you do little to none, so 0 to 1 days per week, you are going to times that number up the top by 1.2. So it's not going to add a lot, it's only going to add on, what's that, 0.2, so 20%. The second option is if you train 1 to 3 days per week. I wouldn't say this is intense exercise, but you are exercising nonetheless. You're doing something and you're making an effort. So if that's the case, then you want to times it by 1.375. Third option is if you're moderately active. So we're looking at sort of 3 to 5 days per week that you are exercising. I'd say that this is fairly intense exercise, not very hard, but you're doing weights every day or something like that. If that is the case, then you times this by 1.55. Fix that up. Number 4 is if you are doing intense exercise, probably 6 to 7 days per week, you're then going to times it by 1.725. Okay? The last option, number 5, is if you are doing basically number 4 and you also have a very intense job. So if you're doing 6 to 7 days plus, so if your job is, I don't know, you're a tradie or something like that where you're constantly moving, constantly lifting stuff, then you are going to times your BMR, times it by 1.9. So it's going to be almost double, right? So for myself, I'll probably fit somewhere in between here. I wouldn't say I'm doing crazy intense exercise, but I'm definitely doing more than 3 days a week. It's probably more around 5 or 6. I'd probably go, let's say 1.55. So for me, my calories will be 2,935 point whatever. Doesn't really matter what point they are. Just round it up to the nearest number because you're not going to count half a calorie. So 2,935 is the number that I'm looking at, right? So now you adjust it based on what your goals are. Yeah, so that's how much I'm probably burning every day, roughly around about 3,000 calories. It's not exact, obviously every day is different and you never know what's gonna happen, but it's near enough, right? And near enough is good enough for an estimate to go off. From here, so if my goal was to put on muscle, I wanna do a bulk or that kind of thing, I'd probably add on 10 to 20% of that. So let's say it was 3,000 calories, 10% is 300, 20% is 600. So if I'm having about 3,500 calories, that would be pretty good for me if I want to try and put on a bit of muscle based on what I'm doing right now. If I wanted to lose a bit of fat, I would take off 10 or 20%. So if I'm at 3,000, again, 3 or 600, so 2.5, probably even 2.7 would be quite good if I was looking at fat loss. Yeah. I think that's it. Cool. So that's how you figure out how many calories you need to be eating. If you'd like to see me do a vert. So that is how you figure out how many calories you need to be eating. As I said, add 10 or 20% if you're trying to gain muscle, take off 10 or 20% if you're trying to lose fat. It is a rough guide. It's not always going to be absolutely perfect, but it does give you a number to work with, which is great. Make sure that you like the video, subscribe, all that stuff. I'm going to try and post a video on how to break down your macros within those calories as well. So watch out for that. Thanks for watching and have a great day.